Edric gave me that look after the contribution. Said, I don't know how I just lost everything in my brain. And I was thinking, I hope it doesn't happen to me too. And it's funny when you're up here, there's 15 things going through your brain at one time, whether it's recognizing a smile on somebody's face or seeing a baby in the crowd that you're excited to see, and seeing all of your friends out there and trying to remember all the things that you'd prepared to say. And then there's new things that you hadn't prepared to say that you feel like you ought to say when you're up here. Just a little bit of a trial that you get to every time you step in front of the group of Christians that you love. Neil was pointing out this morning with the snow and people coming in a little bit late and a little bit of a smaller crowd, really not that much smaller once we got here to start. Class was a little small, but that's okay. It was early. And as we think about that, he was saying how neat it is that this little group just feels really special. And I can't imagine what it's going to be like in another 10 years, no matter how big this church is, if this congregation is, if you were one of these people here in the first 2 or 3 years, we're going to know each other so well. We were talking about knowing God in class this morning and just how interesting that is, the smiling face of God when we finally get to see it. This little congregation, though, this morning I tried to come up with something for us to latch onto, something that would stick. I try to come up with themes for my sermons. If I get a good one, oh, this will be memorable. Who knows? Maybe we'll remember it for the poor execution that I give, but at least the theme this morning, I feel like, is something uh, that is needed by some in our group and might be helpful to those that we come into contact with that we love. And so, what I really wanted to talk about this morning is the idea of being forged by fire. When we look at, uh, you know, the world and what we're living in, it's a gentle process, right? You just stick this hunk of metal in the hot fire, and then you beat on it until you make it into what you want it to be. You put it back in the fire, and you pull it back out, and you beat on it some more. Sometimes in the world today, we wonder why is God putting me through this? Why this test right now? Why this problem right now? And I think about the problems that those that we love in this congregation are going through, the things that are going on in the lives of those that we love, whether they're here or over at Glen Burnie, or those that are at congregations around the world, those that are our family. And why are they going through this? Why was he diagnosed with that? Why is she sick again? You know, why is this happening? And sometimes I think we feel like this piece of metal that's getting beat on. What looks like destruction, though, and what feels like destruction in our lives can actually be preparation. This process is not a gentle one, not one that is, uh, it's not a quiet process either. you know, it's not without intense labor, but it is intentional. It's not chaos. There's a purpose behind the hammer and the anvil and the fire. The metal selected. The When you decide to work with a piece of metal, you can take a look and you can say, this is just junk metal. This is scrap metal. I've been out mountain biking with friends, and I know a guy who does a little bit of this on the side, and he makes little nothings, not fancy, but he makes little nothings. That's what I made. Here, take this home. Okay, I'll take it home. Uh, and but when we were out mountain biking, and there was we were down near the train tracks, and he saw a discarded spike from the train tracks, and said, "Oh!" I want to throw that in my backpack, take it home. I'm going to make something out of that. Something that looks like scrap metal. And people go looking through scrap metal yards and they'll take that metal and they will take it back to a forge. They will melt it down. They will put it just in this simple rod form and then make something out of it later, or they'll just start with that metal. I think it's interesting that a blacksmith doesn't grab trash, that even scrap to a blacksmith is potential. So we can think of ourselves and, oh, I've trashed my life up pretty good. I've scrap, I feel like I'm just a scrap heap. That's all that's left. God sees us as potential, and God chose you like one of these rods on purpose and for his purpose. In Isaiah 64, Isaiah 64 and verse 8, it says, "But now, O Lord, you are our Father, we are the clay, and you our potter, and all of us are the work of your hand." It's not the exact same analogy, but we see here this idea that God is shaping us. Sometimes it feels gentle, sometimes it feels very firm. But this hardship that we're enduring does not necessarily equal punishment or abandonment. The hardship that we're facing is shaping us. God sees our potential, and we are not junk. God uses fire. God uses fire. Now, a lot of times we see, okay, fire and brimstone. And what is in the world? Evil, fire. That fire changes the nature of the metal. That fire, the hotter the fire, the higher quality steel you can make from it. The hotter the fire, the more pure the metals become, and the more workable and malleable they become. You can create great things through that fire. Fire softens the metal, but it doesn't destroy it. That fire softens it, it allows it to be worked, but it doesn't destroy it. God is not destroying us by putting us in the world. He's allowing us to be made into something that he can use. The trials refine our faith just as the metals are refined. In 1 Peter chapter 1, verses 6 and 7, 1 Peter 1, 6 and 7, it says, "In this you greatly rejoice, even though now for a little while, if necessary, you have been distressed by various trials, so that the proof of your faith, being more precious than gold which is perishable, even though tested by fire, may be found to result in praise and glory and honor at the very revelation of Jesus Christ." This fire is a controlled flame. The fire is under the control. The fire is not raging out of control. It may seem that way at times in the world. It may seem that we are in a wildfire, but God has not put us in beyond that which we can handle from a temptation standpoint. This fire, actually, in this world may claim our lives, but that doesn't mean that it won. If you live the life of a good Christian, when this world does claim your life, that's when you win because you get to go home. This blacksmith God, he doesn't walk away from the forge. He's constantly working. He's constantly using this heat and this world to prepare us for his shaping. The hammer. Sometimes we feel pretty beat up. Feel like the hammer just keeps coming. The hits keep coming. Work is tough. Home is tough. The car breaks down. Yeah, I was out plowing this morning and the driver's side windshield wiper stopped moving. Ugh, just one more thing. And I know on the other plow thing that I've got, the transmission's locked up and I've got a backhoe that's stuck in the backfield. There's just everything is broken. The hits keep coming. Sometimes it feels that way spiritually too. You just get spiritually drained by one thing after another. And once it's working on you, it feels like it's working so hard. The blows feel personal. They're not punishment. It's shaping our lives, shaping our spiritual fortitude. Hebrews chapter 12, verses 5 through 11. And you have forgotten the exhortation which is addressed to you as sons. My son, do not regard lightly the discipline of the Lord, nor faint when you are reproved by him. For those whom the Lord loves, he disciplines, and he scourges every son whom he receives. It is for discipline that you endure. God deals with you as sons. For what son is there whom the Father does not discipline? But if you are without discipline, of which all have become partakers, then you are illegitimate children and not sons. Furthermore, we had earthly fathers to discipline us, and we respected them. Shall we not much rather be subject to the Father of spirits and live? For they disciplined us for a short time, as seemed best to them. But he disciplines us for our good, so that we may share his holiness. All discipline for the moment seems not to be joyful, but sorrowful. Yet to those who have been trained by it, afterwards it yields the peaceful fruit of righteousness. Really, punishment is not to inflict pain. Punishment is to correct the action, is to shape the child, to remind the child this is not what you do. This is not who you are. You are going to be something better. The blows of the hammer of life that God allows us, or he either takes or allows us to have, are not punishment, but are correction and shaping. What might God be removing as he forges us, as we go into the forge and then we are beaten, we are shapen, and we are changed? What might he be removing from us? Pride, fear, self-reliance. Once you've been through something the first time and you see it coming again, you go, okay, I know what to do now. Think of George on the football field and the first time he got tackled. I look in his eyes. I don't like that. Say, okay, next time, lower your shoulder a little bit. Get ready to get tackled. There are kids out there, and he plays line, so he doesn't get tackled all the time. He's not usually a ball carrier. But the kids that carry the ball every play, they get used to getting tackled and they get right back up. And they get used to tackling and that hitting, that repeated hitting. You learn how to protect yourself on a football field. This same way, when we are out there in the spiritual world and we see somebody that takes that little dig, oh, you're one of those churchies, one of those Bible thumpers. The first time you hear that, you go, I'm being persecuted. I don't like this. The second time, you go, I've done this before. The 50th time somebody gets on you for going to church, you just go, okay, I get it. And maybe you have the quick response for them that might bring them along too when we get practiced at it. But the first time you're so rocked back on your heels, you can't respond to it in any elegant way because you haven't seen it before. You've never been hit that way before. But these blows by the hammer shape us into something different, something that can have an elegant response. What God might be forming out of you is something with endurance, something with humility, something that can be trusted, something with strength. Each strike intentional. The hammer doesn't just beat the rod, it beats it against an anvil. The anvil from Psalm 18, 1 and 2. I love you, O Lord, my strength. The Lord is my rock and my fortress and my deliverer. My God, my rock, in whom I take refuge, my shield and the horn of my salvation, my stronghold. We have a rock. We have the Lord. We have his scriptures to rely upon. So sometimes when it feels like we've been out there in the flames and the hammer's coming down and it's beating us, if we are playing on the scriptures, if we are relying on the scriptures, relying on the Lord as our rock, we're not falling when we get hit. We're supported, we're bolstered. The anvil is a sign of stability and something that is immovable, a rock. You're being struck, but you have a rock. Between that hammer and that rock, you take shape. God is shaping and holding you at the same time. He's holding you and striking the blows at the same time. That pressure that we're feeling between there is not abandonment, but the pressure is because of the support that is underneath. God is our anvil. The outcome. So think about the outcome of this work that God has. What started out as scrap, as a simple piece of formless metal with not much strength, with not much shape, not much beauty, can become something that the maker has masterfully crafted. Something that the maker is proud of when it's finished. Something that is very different from how it started its journey. Something where you can see the inspiration of the builder, the master craftsman. James chapter 1, verses 2 and 4, 2 through 4 says, "Consider it all joy, my brethren, when you encounter various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces endurance. And let endurance have its perfect result, so that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing." God isn't making just decorations. Sure, there's fancy scrolling on the side of the sword. There's some decorations. There's some ornamental parts, but that's not what the sword is for. God is making an instrument, a tool. A sword must be tested. You think about if you just pulled out a piece of metal and swung it up against another a battle tested sword, you could possibly break that right in half. But when a sword has been worked and worked and folded and worked, you hear these stories of these epic swords that these master craftsmen have made that cut the blade in half of another swordsman in a battle. The Lord is doing that with us when we are under the trials of the day that is around us. When we are feeling that pain, He is turning us into something that cannot be broken, that will be able to prevail. These trials create steadfastness. It's interesting. We think, why would God let me go through this? Why me? Why does it have to happen? Why am I the one going through this? I don't know if I can take this. Why me? God is not going to put this kind of effort into something unless he plans to use it. So why me? Because God has a plan for you. There's not just one plan. God doesn't say, this is the plan for you. And if you don't get on right when you're supposed to, you missed it. You don't miss out on God's plan. God is giving you opportunities every day. And so maybe after that first strike, you can be a blunt tool to bludgeon something to death. Maybe after a few strikes, you become sharp enough that you could cut into something. But maybe at the end of your Christian journey, you are a beautiful tool that God can use for just about anything he wants. He's making you strong for a purpose. It's not something that is an easy process, as we talked about. It's noisy, it's painful, hard on the ears, it's hard on the hands, it's hard on the eyes. When you walk into any place that's got this much heat and this much going on, there's danger in a forge. There's danger there. There's it is a cacophony of sounds and visions going on, and it seems chaotic, but that master craftsman is again intentionally crafting us into something. How did we get here today? How did we start this new little group? How did we grow this little group? How do we introduce ourselves to that one person? Somebody built a website, somebody found the website, they showed up, they said, I'll try this one. How did all this stuff happen? Because God chose us and we decided, I'll do that. I'm capable of doing that now. That's all it takes for us today is to decide I am now capable of that and I'll try. Or I might be capable of that and I'll try. God wants us to be put to use. If in your life you feel that you've been pretty beat up, I hope that you take a little courage from that. I hope that this sermon gives you a little bit of hope and some explanation of why you might have endured these trials. If in your life you've decided, so far, I'm not going to go into that heat, I'm not going to take the beatings, I'm not going to take the blows, I'm going to take it easy, and you look at yourself and go, maybe I am still scrap, it's time to jump into the forge. It's time to put yourself into the hands of the master craftsman. It's time to start your journey as a Christian because you too can be something that he can use for great things if you decide that it's time to step up and start. If you need prayers, if you need a little bit of, one thing I didn't mention is every once in a while, the craftsman will take that hot piece of metal and dip it in the cold water. He'll cool it off. He'll give it a break and then return to shaping. If you need prayers, you need that little break. If you need that little break, you need the prayers. Ask for those prayers. If you need to become something that the Lord is going to use in his purpose today, please come and talk to me as we stand and sing the invitation song.